What's a weird smell you're willing to admit you like? I do professional fireworks as a hobby side hustle kinda thing. There's a saying something along the lines of how guys smelt the smoke, and how once a pyro gets it he's hooked on the world of fireworks. The smell in art supply stores, which I'm sure is just a combination of various chemicals, crayons, oil paint, reams of paper and sketchbooks. I worked in art stores for over 10 years. Beautiful places. All that, plus canvas, wood, charcoal, markers, brushes, all put together, it's such a nice smell, and I'm sure only some of them are VOCs that are destroying my brain cells. Lol, it's too bad that all that's around me now are the mega arts and crafts stores like Michael's. They don't smell at all the same. It's because they smell like summer. IMO. Growing up in a cold environment made me subconsciously enjoy sounds and smells that remind me of summer. Chlorine, cicadas, sunscreen, birds chirping, campfire, etc. Fair, got a similar affinity for certain latex smells. I was speaking of knickers and such if it would spice up your bedroom lol. They also have latex and leather and really anything anyone could be into. Also made into any shape or form that you please. From bikini to stockings and gloves to masks and full pieces of outerwear ranging from casual to formal. They also got options to go inside you in any hole. I repeat, any hole, no matter the size. For me, it was most blank VHS tapes that came with plastic sleeves, like the Panasonics and the Sonys. Remove the cellophane, pull out the tape and breathe in lol. The paper sleeve ones like Scotch not so much. I have a memory of opening a strawberry shortcake VHS at age 5 and being shocked that it smelled like strawberry instead of plastic. Maybe I just thought that because it was pink, but I kept going back to sniff the Disney VHS boxes instead. My soul likes the smell of my armpits. I take it as it's the testosterone in sweat. There was a show a few years back where they took 12 women, they had to smell sweaty shirts while blindfolded and pick out their husband's shirt. All 12 were correct. Your armpits keep the hair for sexual selection, at least back before deodorant was a thing. It told people how compatible your immune systems are. I don't know if it's testosterone or any other pheromones, but I can say that I love my wife's armpit smell, and she's a woman. She also thinks it's gross. I like it. Lamau. I so uses a very good smelling deodorant, so I am all in on smelling hers as well, but everything I can think of is pheromones if it's not testosterone. I'm pretty sure it's a lot more complicated than just testosterone and sweat. A ton of information about a person's immune system is encoded in their body odor. We're attracted to people our body thinks we have a compatible immune system with, meaning that the child's immune system would be greater than the sum of its parts. Same reason we enjoy kissing certain people more than others. Exchanging information about your inner workings is a very big part of mating. The best smell in the world used to be a freshly opened can of Play-Doh, but they changed the formula somewhere in my timeline and the magic is gone. I just bought this box of Celestial Seasonings sugar cookie sleigh ride tea that is almost like eating Play-Doh from the can. The smell is so spot on. They should rename it Preschool Playtime and sell it year-round. Okay, call me crazy, but my bottle of Amaretto has a scent scarily reminiscent of Play-Doh, but that might also be because I left it to be bleached in the sun for a year. Amaretto sucks. So maybe you can give a bottle a sniff and have your own personal ego moment. Waiting on a train platform and an old man starts smoking a pipe 50 feet away. I just love that smell, but I have never wanted to smoke a pipe myself. My father smoked a pipe. A lovely warm vanilla was his preference. He passed quite a bit ago, and everyone mentions his pipe smoke as a favored part of his memory. The smell takes them back to a happy day with fun conversations with Dad. It's such a pleasant, warm, homey smell. My dad exclusively smokes pipes, still goes to an old-fashioned tobacco in his small town. The smell also reminds me of good conversations and generally feeling cozy. Every time I smell it in the world, it makes me smile. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm glad he will always be with you through that memory. This may sound weird, but I love it. There have been several times in the years since he passed that I have smelled the smoke. standing at a dirt track long before me. He raced sitting on my porch where you would hang out and talk, and other times when I've just needed my daddy. Not a tiny wisp memory, but I've actually looked for visible smoke, because it is as strong as if I sat 4 foot from him smoking. Nothing will ever soothe the hurt like knowing he visits. Not weird at all. My grandma passed when I was 16. I'm now in my mid-30s. I've wished a lot of times I could talk to her experiences, advice, just generally missed her whatever as I've bumbled around the last 20 years. She loved cardinals, had those little birds all over all her Christmas decorations. Since she's departed, I've seen cardinals close to those moments of missing her, and it always feels like a squeeze from the universe. My dad is still here, however I know when the time comes I'll feel the same way you do. I still love to go to a good tobacco store. I don't smoke a pipe, but I love smelling the different choices. I used to buy a couple ounces of the 3 best I could find for him to try out. A lovely golden burley blend, light bit full flavored. Nothing harsh, no Cavendish, nothing too dark or overly robust. If it doesn't have the pleasant scent fresh, it will smell bitter burning. I have never understood wine in terms of the finer nuances even though I drink it. But I fully understand pipe tobacco and have never smoked any. Most nice-smelling pipe tobaccos also contain a topping to add different flavors or scents. There are also plenty of pipe tobaccos that don't smell great. You'll often see a room note listed in descriptions of different tobaccos. I mean, cigars are generally in through the mouth, out the mouth, and occasionally you retrohale for a different flavor. You won't want to be retrohaling the whole time on a cigar because it'll burn out your nostrils and, depending on the cigar, make you feel its peppery notes. Pipes are more of a smolder compared to a full burn. The tobacco tends to be a blend of higher quality tobaccos designed for a pleasing scent. The added notes are usually more towards vanilla, cherry, cognac notes in the most popular blends. They give a nice mellow tone. Pipes are also smoked differently, more of a puff than a long draw into the lungs. Maybe it's the quality of tobacco in pipes versus cigarettes, single origin versus whatever was cheapest, plus chemical additives, and quantity of tobacco in pipes versus cigars, like the difference between a hint of perfume on someone and a person who went to town with it. They smell like absolute asshole to many people, and it's so strong that you can be smoking it at the beach and ruining someone's day a mile down the beach. I say this as someone who used to smoke and was mostly desensitized to tobacco smell. Oddly, certain secondhand smoke is pleasant, but not any cheap cigarettes. I used to do American Civil War reenacting with a group, and once smoked those Swisher Sweets cherry mini cigars. There's just something enjoyable about that if you don't think too much about it. I actually prefer the new book smell. From when I was little, I've always looked at the title, smelled the inside of the book, then finished checking out the book. On the rare occasion, don't like that particular new book smell. It's pretty sad actually. The smell of saline. It's weird, but when I was getting chemo, and they started the first saline flush would result in a salty smell. I liked that smell cause it meant the most acutely painful part of the day was over, and I wouldn't get stuck again cause the wasn't in right. It goes through the blood and out the lungs. It's something from the storage media that leaches into it. I remember smelling the sleeping agent when I was put under. Reminded me of a candy that's now off the market. It contained chloroform. Before my partner got cancer, I never would have expected this routine part of the process was going to be such an unpleasant part of the chemo experience. Sometimes they had to stick him 4 to 5 times depending on the skill of the nurse and the state of his veins due to treatment. Who knew? When my mom was getting chemo, it was the absolute opposite for her. She had a port installed in her chest, so they didn't have to do N4, but they had to flush the line before giving her medication. Her brain associated the flavor of the saline flush with the nausea she felt from the chemo, so the saline flushes would make her vomit all the time. When I was a kid, I struck a match and happened to inhale at the same time, and the initial burn off chemicals coated the inside of my mouth. Water wouldn't wash it away. Resigned myself to likely having poisoned myself and maybe be dying. Hope I'm slightly less dramatic since then. When used to smoke cigarettes, I made a point to use matches and light it with the actual phosphorus flame. My grandpa did it, and it became my habit too. The whole cig tasted like a house smells, and eventually couldn't do it without a match. just reminds me of shooting guns and fireworks. The smell of the old moldy AC in my elementary school portable, the smell of the walk-in freezer at Costco, the smell of these weird, static-powered AC filters my dad used that turned into mildew traps that never got replaced, all of it. As soon as I smell it, I immediately feel relaxed and content with the world. There was no better day in my childhood than the day my mom finally let us turn the AC back on in the late spring in Florida, after turning it off in the previous fall. That smell, the smell of summer breaks, playing PC games, cooling off after a day playing outside with my friends, so nostalgic. I did grow up in Florida where it was ungodly hot and humid, so maybe that is something to do with it. I found the last 2 long-term partners I've had to possess wonderful body odor. I didn't even consider it remotely gross, and when I've openly talked about it, I realized how unusual it is based on the reactions I'd get. We're not alone. There are dozens of us. Seriously though, both of those women smelled incredible. I mean in the David Banner, bring yo s sweaty, cause I love it when it's funky, kind of way. It isn't like I enjoy foul-smelling putrescence, and short-term flings never impacted me the same way. Maybe it was just due to me being overwhelmingly in love. I'm right there with you, been doing that for years. I was with my ex-wife for 16, and after several years, I stopped pretending. With my follow-up love, I just skipped the kidding and told her, I'm going to lick those armpits, and it all worked out. I don't know why this isn't higher up, but I love my so's body odor, lol. Especially waking up together, cuddling and taking in their smell. I love when I go to bed and the sheets smell like her. This is gonna be super weird, sometimes I sniff her armpit as a joke, but secretly, just really like the smell. Her BO smells sweet and good in a way that I chalk up to being part of the ancient monkey brain we all still possess. Like it unlocks this feeling of love that hits me deep in the chest. I've always liked my wife's smell, but after she got pregnant, it increased tenfold. I do her laundry most of the time, and I genuinely enjoy the smell of her body on her clothes. We always joke about her pheromones and how she knows when she's ovulating, because I get extra lovey-dovey. I've never even pretended with my now wife of 9 years. When she goes 2-3 days without showering, I dig my head into her armpits with deep breaths, and it's like taking some good enema. She smells so good in there. It's not pheromones. The study they did from memory showed that people with different immune strengths found each other's scents attractive. It's probably an evolutionary advantage to help create healthier children with strong immune systems. Doesn't mean you aren't compatible. Lots of people find their partners stinky and still have great marriages. That combination of natural scent with the perfume, lotion, and hair products is so uniquely spectacular. I smelled my ex-girlfriend in the grocery store a few months back and started to feel my heart race. Looked around for her and didn't see her, but I know I smelled her. Kind of a bittersweet moment. My girlfriend smells like jasmine tea to me. We've checked her various shampoos, soaps, lotions, detergents, perfumes, doesn't seem to come from any of those. She doesn't always have the scent, but on a fairly regular basis she does, and it's divine. I work as a refueler at an airport. The stuff stinks. 1 drop and you smell like jet fuel all day. Mostly dislike it, but you know when you have fueled an aircraft, and it starts engines, and you give the all clear, and it turns out from the stand, and blasts you with that hot jet fuel exhaust, it's still awesome. And I have been doing it for more than 3 decades. Ain't time to come out. I like sniffing my nose, like puckering my lips, and I guess smelling my mustache. Am I the only one? I love doing this too. I do it a lot when I'm wearing a mask, so people can't see I'm smelling my own nose. Except instead of puckering my lips, I do this thing called lip compression. I just googled that term. Guess it's basically the opposite of puckering my lips. It seems to me other people's breath has a smell of its own, not of something they have consumed like cigarettes or garlic or of saliva. Maybe air gets a different moisture level and accumulates some mucus on the way out of the body. I don't know what it is, but I love it. I live in SC and my basement had that smell for a while. My brother moved into the basement and he's an alcoholic, so now the whole place down there smells like alcohol, sadly. However, one room still smells like that. Damn, this house is really old wood smell, you know? And I sometimes have to go in there to get something and stop for a moment just to smell the room cause it smells nice lol. Have you ever been close to an actual skunk spraying? It's very intense and unpleasant. A skunk once sprayed the underside of the car I was in as we drove over it. We had to immediately open the windows and pull over BC, we couldn't breathe. I got razzed by friends when I said I thought skunk smelled like freshly brewing coffee. A year or so later, one of them came back and apologized, saying that she and her kid drove by a dead skunk, and her kid said, "Why do I smell coffee?" Sweet vindication. I developed anosmia in my mid-teens and regained my ability to smell in my mid-40s. The first thing I was able to smell was a freshly killed skunk on the highway. I have enjoyed the smell ever since. It reminds me of the I had smelling something again after all those years. The worst for me. Dog getting blasted right in the mouth, and I had to clean that up cause my ex couldn't be bothered. Good God, the smell from a distance is awful, but up close and personal now, that is absolutely horrible. And I've been around smelt a whole bunch of foul tea by skunk, is one I can never get used to. I had a redneck neighbor who was constantly burning off large piles of branches and whatever else he could throw in there. The smoke would completely enshroud my property and come into my house for days. Believe me, one can easily hate the smell when you're forced to choke on it for long periods of time. My family has always teased me about loving the smell of my dog's feet. My last dog was a Dachshund, and she would lay there and let me sniff. Of course, she liked it when I'd rub them, so I guess she received a payoff. At any given time, dogs have some level of bacteria and fungi on their skin. When your dog's paws have a bacteria called Pseudomonas and Proteus, they can give off a yeasty odor that smells similar to corn chips, says the American Kennel Club's chief veterinary officer Dr. Jerry Klein, DVM, 1309-2022. It's kinda sweet smelling, but there's nothing like it. Freshly opened pack smells amazing. Once you light up, it's over though. There's also nothing quite like walking by someone smoking when you're a couple months into quitting. Smells amazing, and it often breaks your willpower lol. I've switched to vaping to quit this time, so it mostly smells bad, but in the past when I'd quit it'd be totally random whether or not someone else smoking smelled good or not. I think it's heavily dependent on the type of cigarettes. Like cheap ones smell like tea, but if I smelled my old brand, it would be an extreme test of willpower if I caved or not. I'm from Richmond, Virginia originally, and in the 70s, I lived downtown with my parents. I was just little, but I strongly remember the delicious permeating smell of the various leaf tobacco they stored in giant warehouses, mostly for processing at Philip Morris. The whole of downtown smelled like this at certain times of the year, and it was glorious. It was a golden, very sweet smell with just traces of bitterness and musk. It's been years and years since I even thought about that smell. Philip Morris is still there, but I think the tobacco is handled processed differently now. At any rate, that marvelous perfume is gone from downtown Rava, and I don't smell it except occasionally when someone opens a fresh pack of cigarettes close to me. Ugh, this one instantly gives me a migraine. I spent the night at a friend's house, and she and her husband had them in all their closets, and the smell was so overpowering. I tried to sleep, but my head was pounding. I had to go outside on their front porch and try to get some fresh air and try not to throw up. Never went there again. Some airports in the Caribbean have this damp smell that's at a weird midpoint between pleasant and unpleasant. I love it, because it's a sense memory that binds me to the feeling of escaping from the cold, dark winters where I live. I'm not sure whether this qualifies, but where I used to live, it was standard practice to give people frequent hugs. If I had previously visited someone's home, the setting would have had a certain scent, and practically every time gave someone a hug, they would smell like their home. Making that connection always felt satisfying. It was consoling in some sense. I pick up this particular smell off of probably 1 out of every 200 people I am in close proximity to. It's almost like a pickle smell, but there's something different about it. Definitely an acidic vinegar smell. But it's not just that. I smell it on a lot of Middle Eastern people, but not just Middle Eastern people. My so says he can't smell it when I point it out. I love it, and I wish I knew what it was. The smell of powdered cocaine mixed in with a home-rolled cigarette. It's evocative of a candy store, or something equally shimmeringly sweet from far-off distant memories that you can't put your finger on, and the effect, when held in for a few beats, has much the effect of coke does in the usual way. When I was growing up, it was always the smell from the gasoline coming from the pumps. To this day, still not sure why. Another one would be the smell of incoming rain. I would count it as weird as when I would mention this to people around me. They'd actually look at me weird as they couldn't smell the rain on its way. I'd then avoid the told you so once it did start raining. I know it's weird, but I actually have a reason why. When I was very little, we would often have to go to the storm cellar in the middle of the night. The house we lived in was not the sturdiest, so all 5 of us would run to the cellar for safety. Dad would go first, check for snakes, and light the lantern. Then we would huddle together in the dim lantern light and safely ride out the storm. To this day, the smell of kerosene brings me a feeling of safety, and I love being underground. Most people I know like the smell of fresh cut grass. I hate it. To contrast that, set a field of fire, and I really like the smell of it burning. It seems very specific to a grass fire and isn't a general like for the smell of burning things. I used to work as a mail carrier, and this one house on my route had a mail slot in their vestibule or mudroom. It reeked of wet dog in this mudroom, but I would always look forward to that doggy smell. It was then that I realized, after having grown up with dogs, I missed the way most of them smell. I really liked the smell of a Payless store. Maybe it's linked to nostalgia, as that was the only shoe store my family shopped at for years since it was affordable. Yet there was nothing I loved more than walking in and getting that strong smell of brand new shoes. Was pretty bummed when I walked in during its Everything Must Go store closing sale, before COVID hit. Okay, I'll be the weird one. I love sweaty feet smell. I don't know why. It just smells kind of weirdly good to me. And what's left on socks or shoes? Somehow, that's not great. But like that smell when you first take socks off after a long day, and your feet can finally breathe a bit. Rubbing alcohol when you go to donate blood, and they have to prick your finger first to check your hemoglobin. They first wipe your fingertip down with a little wipe soaked with rubbing alcohol. When I was pregnant, it was intense and made my mouth water. Sometimes I feel like I like the smell of cigarettes on people. That comes with having a thing for women that are smokers. Also, while welding steel with the MIG method, you can smell cotton candy. That's what I kinda like lol. Even though breathing the smoke in isn't healthy at all.